if there's a second round here coming up. Dave Joyce, the Republican from Ohio, stayed quiet on his vote, missed his name in the roll call. John James missed his name in the roll call. We'll have to make it up in the back end. So we're left wondering what happens next here, Chad, and if indeed perhaps you're going to tell me it looks more unlikely by the minute that they'll go directly into a second roll call here.
I think that that's a decision they have to make on the fly. I mean, we saw what happened with Kevin McCarthy, where you had a clear nominee who was, within the range of getting to the votes, where they went time after time again, sometimes 2 and 3 roll call votes a day. This is a little bit different if maybe they think, okay, these members are gettable. This was a protest vote on this first vote. Maybe we take a timeout, we put names into nomination, and we do it again. The flip side of doing that immediately is that you might harden some of the opposition, the people who are really against Jim Jordan. Or what you could do is, by forcing the issue, the phone calls start to come in, the emails start to come in. I could not begin to characterize the level of pressure that is about 40 feet away from me inside the House chamber right now, because better, or does that timeout actually make the dissension grow? That's a hard scenario to read right now. It could go either way. And the fact that they have not had a Speaker of the House for 2 weeks. We have not been in this position since 1849. Hal Cobb, back in 1849, became Speaker after a 2-week hiatus. Although he won finally on the 63rd roll call vote, the House has not been voting. This is the first roll call vote for Speaker since they deposed Kevin McCarthy 2 weeks ago today, Sandra and John.
11.
All right. And when you take a look at it, we're a little past the halfway mark. It would look. Nobody has voted present yet, but we do have 4 votes for Scalise, 5 for McCarthy, and 4 others. That'd be Garcia and Zeldin. So it's not looking good for Jim Jordan on this first go around. Let's bring in our chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor, Byron York. Byron, as Chad pointed out, 2 weeks without a speaker here. When are they going to get this done?
Luna.
Well, right now, I think we shouldn't underplay the importance of emotion in this vote right now, because the people who are voting against Jim Jordan, they were angry with how Kevin McCarthy was treated. And then they were angry with how Steve Scalise was treated. And some of them feel they're sure not going to let Jim Jordan sail through on the first ballot. Maybe they'll vote for him later. Maybe this could change later. But this is almost a statement they're making of how unhappy they are. At the same time, they're also likely to be in that caucus that says, this is crazy, this is embarrassing, we need a speaker, let's move on, so that ultimately they would be more likely to vote for him. So I'm going to look to see if after a ballot or two, some of them are going to say, well, we made our point, and now let's elect Jordan Speaker.
Really interesting here. So now the tally, 13 House Republicans, Byron, have voted against Jim Jordan. The emotions of the moment is an interesting observation, with many standing up, casting their votes with enthusiasm or lack thereof. Byron, what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, Chad's saying it's really and sort of an unprecedented moment. We can't really predict if they're going to go into a second vote. But if he's now got 13, by last tally, 13 Republicans in the no category for Jordan, it's probably unlikely they would move into a second round here.
I think so. I think what we've seen in this first ballot, there are more no votes than I was thinking would happen. We're now, 13 no votes. And if you remember, there was a lot of speculation ahead of time that the people who would be against Jim Jordan would be called the moderates in the House versus the bomb throwers in the House who deposed Kevin McCarthy. And so the idea was that the bomb throwers were really hardcore. They were going to vote against Kevin McCarthy, bring down the House, no matter what the consequences were. And the feeling about the moderates was they would cave at some point. They would say, this is crazy. The House needs to go on. We don't really, Jim Jordan is not our first or our second choice, but we really need to move on and get a speaker. Now, what we're seeing now is a stronger display of opposition than some had thought. And I think clearly Chad was saying, it's either going to get stronger or get weaker after this first vote. And we're just going to have to wait and see.
All right. So McCarthy wasn't pure enough. Scalise wasn't pure enough. If Jordan's not acceptable, where do they go to next? Tom Emmer? Somebody else?
Yeah, that's always been a possibility. And it happens in politics sometimes when you have these two candidates who are locked in a death match, and then sometimes neither one of them gets it and somebody else does. I think the possibility that Chad was talking about actually changing the rules a bit and letting Patrick McHenry stay on as Speaker pro tem with some of the powers of the speakership. I think that would take a lot of Democratic input to do, but it might be a possibility if somebody says, look, we're having so much trouble getting a speaker. Do we have to have a Speaker of the House to do some of the things that we need? Or is it a roadblock that we simply cannot get around? No way, no how. Can't address the Israel-Hamas situation, can't address Ukraine aid, can't address a government shutdown that is coming down the tracks. We can't do any of that until we have a speaker. So this is going to be very, very tense and very emotional. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a possibility of a third candidate coming out of somewhere.
All right, Byron, if you could stand by with us on the breaking news. We are looking live on Capitol Hill, where as the vote continues, we now know it is unlikely that Jim Jordan will win the speakership on this first vote, at least. Chad Pergam is standing by, our congressional correspondent. Chad, what do you know?
Well, nothing is ever final until it's final. Again, when they go through these roll call votes, until they go back through the alphabet. Remember, I noted that Ken Buck, the Republican from Colorado, did not vote, so he'll get to vote at the end. And they will also ask if members want to change their vote. So while it appears unlikely right now that, Jim Jordan is going to wrap this up on the first ballot, and this would compel them to go to a second ballot, you could have members maybe keep the vote open, have some horse trading in the chamber there, some arm twisting, and maybe, try to rally the troops. You say, okay, look, you made your point. Can you vote for Jordan, or can you switch to president? I would never rule that out in these circumstances, because this has been so wild up here over the past couple of weeks. Some of these members are absolutely opposed to Jim Jordan. I talked to one member last night who indicated that they thought that how Steve Scalise was treated by the Jordan acolytes was, quote, disqualifying. And so based on my conversation with that member, they didn't think that they would ever get that particular member. But one wonders, again, this is being played live on the field. This is like a sporting event. You don't know what is truly going to happen until they go to that final gun, until they blow that whistle. This vote is live. This vote is hot. And those members could be persuaded. Are they persuadable? That is an unknown. That would really be the test of Jim Jordan and his power, potentially, if he's going to be an effective Speaker of the House, to be able to bring those people across the finish line at the last minute. That was one of the knocks that Mario Diaz-Balart, the Republican from Florida, who opposed Jim Jordan here today on the floor, he said, look, after Steve Scalise got the nomination the other day, Jim Jordan threw his support to Steve Scalise, and then the Jordan people didn't follow. He said, really, how strong a leader is him? He said, that maybe tells you the level of control that he has over those members. And so does Jim Jordan have enough political juice to, whether it be on the floor now while this roll call vote is still open, or maybe afterwards or later tonight or tomorrow, to bring those folks across the floor? That remains to be seen, John and Sam.
All right, Chad, I get the sense that whenever you go to the horse races, you put a couple of bucks on the long shot just for fun. So we'll see how this goes. Chad,
you're
we'll
right about that.
Thanks. Yeah, now this.
we feel that we will die in every minute, every second. We hope we are stay alive.
We have today, unlike the Holocaust, a state and an army and a people that can fight back.
The president believes that this is exactly the right time to go to Israel.
I don't like that he's coming here. I don't think he needs to come here. He's elected, stopping us now from revenge, and we need revenge.
Our coverage continues of the war in the Middle East. We are waiting an update now at this hour from the Pentagon after 2,000 American